Coming up, Marshall Bell joins Illeana in just a minute.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
And now, it's the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast, starring Illeana Douglas. Eavesdrop with Illeana as she interviews Hollywood's most prominent players about filmmaking, acting, and what really happens on the set of your favorite flicks and TV shows.
Hi, everyone. It's Illeana Douglas. Welcome to the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tamara Bird.
Hi, everybody.
Happy May Day. Happy International Workers' Day to as a former Swede working for IKEA. It's a fake Swedish IKEA co-worker. May Day, or the Workers' Day, was always very important to them.
Oh, yes.
I only thought of, because I remember they were saying, May Day, and I kept thinking May Day, like
the day you put flowers on people's doorsteps, right?
Well, I said so important, but I'm not a communist.
No, you're
and
not.
There's the proof. But it's very important to them. Okay, so much to talk about. We have character actor Marshall Bell here. I'm very excited to talk to him.
Lovely guy.
Yes, very, very many films under his belt. And because we're live, we can talk about the 2018 the TCM Film Festival.
Turner Classic Movies Film Festival, which has been going on for the last week and a half. Is that right?
I think it started, it sort of pre-starts last Wednesday.
Oh, got it.
And,
Okay.
Amazing as always. There's always highlights. For me, I guess I'm trying to think of got to interview Gillian Armstrong, director of My Brilliant Career, Mrs.
Right.
Soulful, little version of Little Women with Winona Ryder and many other great Australian films, as well as a documentary that I called The Women I've Undressed, which is about the life of a costume designer named Ori Kelly.
Oh.
Which I highly recommend. It's a lot of fun, and Gillian Armstrong did that. Just a prolific female director. So that was a highlight. Some pre-code films. I met the grandson of Joel McCrea, Wyatt McCrea, who has invited us out to the McCrea Ranch, which I'm definitely going to
you should absolutely do
take
that.
advantage of that. Do some, horseback riding, and I love Joel McCrea. I mean, my God, it's amazing. And so we did a pre-code movie called Girls About Town, which is exactly as the title hints. It's girls, and they swing a lot of jewelry and go about town trying to get men. But that was excellent. And then I always like to, oh my goodness, nitrate print of Spellbound.
Wow.
With 103-year-old Norman Lloyd in attendance, who's going strong. And I think my favorite fun movie that I saw, I ended the festival by watching Animal House. It was like the 40th anniversary of Animal House.
Oh, how fun.
With a lot of the cast, of course, in attendance. John Landis and Ben Mankiewicz did a great job interviewing them. Very, very funny. But I know Jamie Widows. I've worked with Jamie Widows, Tim Matheson. Bruce McGill was a very good friend of John Hurd, so I actually met him recently. And who am I missing? Matheson. And Stephen Bishop, who was, in the film. But Tim Matheson, who I've worked with, we did a show together called Shark. And he was my murdering client, I believe. I tried to represent him.
Oh.
But he was so wonderful and charming and just so much fun to work with. And he's been an actor for a long time. But he gave me an Animal House nickname.
What?
From now on, you might have to call me Delta Silly Illy. So
Delta Silly Illy.
yeah, pretty good.
I love it.
Pretty good. I'm as if you're going to hashtag it, I guess you'd say goals. That was
Exactly. I might have to get you one of those little cursive necklaces that has a little Delta sign and then says Silly Illy on
all
it.
the top 10 moments of my career involve something like that, not awards or accolades or something going well. It's just like, Jean-Paul Belmondo smiling at me. I'm like, yeah, that was top 10. But it was absolutely wonderful. And of course, the highlight too is also seeing all the fans and people I've known at TCM party, and we got a lot of shout outs for the podcast.
Oh, great.
Some people are listening.
I hope that you corralled some more fans too, just because there may be people who haven't heard about it.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Well, it certainly got enough mention, so I
good.
guess we have to raise our standards. The other thing I want to briefly talk about, because I never dip into controversy at all.
Nope.
I don't know how. I'm just it bypasses me, or I don't notice it.
You're a lover, not a fighter, like me.
But I slipped into some controversy when I introduced a film at the festival with comedian Dennis Miller called Them, a B movie about gigantic ants. A lot of fun. Never met Dennis before. He was lovely, and we had an absolute blast, and he was charming, and TCM took a lot of pictures of us together smiling.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, it'd be fun. I'll be a team player, and I'll put out
Post
one of
some
these
photos.
pictures that our introduction went well, and and I've met my new friend. Well, that didn't go over so well because I guess a couple of days later, Mr. Miller put, everybody has an opinion. He posted something, about the correspondence dinner, which I'm not aware of, and I don't know anything about that. But man, the amount of hatred and hate that I got directed towards me
For standing next to him
well, it was, I think,
and calling him your friend, I guess, was the...
Yeah, I was accused of trying to give him legitimacy and a whole bunch of other
You're very powerful, aren't
kind
you?
of crazy things. And I tried to address it, I thought, in a very simple way of just saying, listen, I don't choose who is picked by TCM, but it's not my job to judge them. It's my job to make them feel welcome. That's all I can do. And we're there to introduce the film. And I also, the only pointed thing I said was, I think that if we spent more time, I don't know, Mr. Miller's politics. I'm not going to ask him about his politics. We're there to talk about a giant ant movie.
Right.
And that's all I care about. So, it was, I think that people, again, if people, watch more films together, possibly, that if we laugh together and cry together, these are the things that bring us together and give us some common ground and some understanding. And I've always felt that that's what TCM does so well.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt. I felt as if, I've met someone, maybe I don't necessarily agree with their politics, but we had a great time. I mean, we had a great time doing, and I think that part of the reason that I put the picture out there was this idea that you don't necessarily have to agree with someone's politics, but you can enjoy a good, B movie together.
Exactly. Have an experience of some sort together that's completely apolitical.
And it didn't, it went over so badly
Wow.
that eventually I just was like, oh, the hell with it. I just deleted the picture,
Yeah.
But
Not worth fighting over.
well, except for that, the picture. Oh, and then I was further attacked for also being friends with James Woods.
Yes.
And I was like, and I noticed you also say nice things about James Woods. Again, I don't ask Mr. Woods about politics. I have worked with him on a television show and have known him for many years. And again, as an actor, I have tremendous respect for him. And he's been a good friend to me. And that's all I can do. As I recall, in America, I think it's just polite that I was always taught, don't ask about politics.
Right.
Don't talk about politics.
Well, but now, because everyone has a Twitter account,
Right.
And can, blast whatever their views are out in the world for anyone to see, it's just much better known what people's stances are than would have been the case, even 10 years ago.
The only statement that I ever really like to make is that if I'm in show business, which is my chosen career, I've been making a living at it. I've been doing it since I was a kid, but I've been making a living as a professional actor in the Screen Actors Guild since 1986, and I've been a member of the Academy for many years. And I feel that my role as an actor and as an entertainer is to be an ambassador for good. And my role is not to, and whoever I work for, my role is to make whoever I work with feel good, regardless of what my personal opinion is. I'm not a reporter. I'm not, and it just was like that, again, this momentary thing of something that I felt was so nice about films and TCM, and it just entered this fray of kind of of ugliness.
But I love that about you, and I agree with you about that it's not your job to be sort of jumping into that fray. Some people do, and some people it is part of their very specific mission. But I really love about you that you are about, creating commonalities and creating good,
absolutely,
good works and good experiences for people. That's going to make the world go further in my book than a lot of other things.
Yes, and then finally, just to put a cap on it, when it got to the point where, again, people were using sort of vulgarity and calling me the A word, I was like, okay, well, maybe,
that's the line.
Maybe it's just best. I'm sorry that we can't have a thoughtful discussion about that. But anyway, that's that. Aside from that, Marshall. It was an incredible thing, TCM Film Festival. But now we're going to talk about Marshall Bell. And I will get off my soapbox now. All right, our guest today is an actor with a very long list of credits. You have seen him in the films Capote, Stand By Me, Total Recall, of course, Starship Troopers, and his TV roles include The X-Files, Hull High, Deadwood, The Newsroom, and many, many more. And we met many years ago on the set of Larry Sanders. Please welcome Marshall Bell. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is fun. Those are the best potato chips I've ever had. Ever. She made them.
Well, brag about us, because again, that's one of, we have snacks.
Yep.
We always talk about our snacks.
We do talk about the snacks.
But Tamara is she's a whiz in the kitchen.
Well, they are, literally.
Yeah,
so.
she makes homemade potato chips.
Whoa.
What about, I guess you didn't have my peanut butter. No, I didn't contribute
I had some
much
peanut butter.
today.
I don't think I did have your peanut butter.
Well, you'll have to try that out.
I will when I go out.
But Tamara does all the heavy lifting with all but those potato chips are amazing. And what's
Thank
great
you.
is I've tried to make them, but they don't come out as good, so that's good.
I practice. I mean, I make
Yeah.
them every week, so I have a lot of practice at making those chips.
But anyway, thank you for enjoying them, and thank you for being here, Marshall. We have so much to do, but of course we're going to start with my favorite question, which you gave me a hint at, but I didn't let you finish. What was the first film you saw, and who took you to see it?
Okay, the first film I saw, the first film I remember seeing when I went with my parents was Lemon Drop Kid. But the first
good
film
one.
I saw, I think I went with a group, and it was, I'm getting creeped out saying this, it was The Wizard of Oz. 'Cause
Right.
in those days, they'd take these films and play them like a major theater would have them.
Right.
Marshall, can you get just a little closer
And
to
I
the
was,
mic?
yeah,
Perfect,
and I
thanks.
was, it was made in 39 or 40, so this
39.
yeah. So I went, and I remember I sat in about the fourth row, and I was really creeped out by the witch.
Yeah. Well.
Freaked out.
Yeah.
And witches are not my thing.
Yeah. She was. I remember seeing it on television. I had a little stuffed dog named King, and I was hysterical, thinking,
Yeah.
I should somehow get my.
So you're not good with witches either, then, or?
Well, I am a witch, so I had to eventually.
Well, I'm okay with. I like them now, but I didn't.
now I like them, but she was one scary witch, I have to say.
Yeah.
And
the broom and everything.
oh, it's terrifying.
House, and so
the monkeys,
it
everything
terrified
about
me.
it.
Yeah.
I think the flying monkeys are perhaps the scary.
Kind of, they didn't bother me, and
Really?
the crew, the Tin Man, all that didn't
they're all.
bother me.
I love all of them. Now and then, Lemon Drop Kid. Did
Bob
you?
Hope.
Who's one of my favorites. I love Bob.
Well, but I went in and this movie, it's Bob Hope, so you think jokes. No, there was a guy got stabbed in the back, and I mean, it was violent. And Bob Hope was a very underrated actor.
I
'Cause he
think
was
so.
Yeah. I wanted him to get an Oscar. He was always
Yeah.
joking about it, but
Yeah.
then when he played Jimmy Walker.
Oh, I love that film.
Yeah.
And the Seven Little Boys.
Yeah, and that too, but
one of my
they never took
favorites.
him. He was good.
Yeah, I think he was terrific. He was
Yeah.
terrific. I mean, look at him just in the Hope and Crosby movies.
He
too.
patted me on the head once.
He did?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? Aw.
We were in London at the theater, and Olivier's wife, I can't even remember the name of the play. There's so many plays. His last
Joan
Yes,
Plowright.
yes. was in it. And he comes in. We're sitting there, and he comes in, and it was right after Crosby had died.
Uh-huh.
And I just couldn't help myself. I just said, "You're the greatest." And we were in the back row, and he went around back, and he patted me on the head. Isn't that sweet?
It's like being anointed, you know?
yeah.
I love things like that. Peter O'Toole once patted me on the head too, and I've treasured it. We met at a film festival called the Savannah Film Festival, and he was being honored. And he was having breakfast alone, and I invited him over to where we were all sitting, and he regaled us. It was incredible for like 2 hours of stories and everything. And then he was going out sightseeing, and he sort of dressed, and I'll never forget him at the hotel, sort of bounding down the steps, very Peter O'Toole, and threw the scarf around his neck, and I was on the step, and he same thing, patted me on the head, and he said, "Goodbye, filmmaker."
Well,
wow.
he's in one of my 5 favorite films of all time. So
Which is
Lawrence.
Oh my God, I know that's you've seen it on the big screen, I'm sure.
Seen it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen it.
Yeah, when they did that re-release, I remember.
Saw that.
Yeah, that's when you really. I mean, up until then, I still loved it because they would always. I think they'd have to play it back in the day. Remember when they do 2-parter?
Well, we
Movies.
loved that. I mean, I miss
you'd have
all
to-
that.
You'd have to stay tuned. You'd have to stay in the mood for
Well, but it was great to kind of like you knew you were there for a long time and you were enjoying the first half of it.
Yeah.
And you got to go back.
I know there was quite a few movies in my childhood, like that Giant, Gone with the Wind, of course.
Another one of my top 5.
Oh, Giant's incredible. Yeah, that's grown on me. When I was a kid, I wasn't as enamored of it, but now when I watch it, I've become a huge George Stevens fan.
It's a kind of a cliche, but they go on about James Dean. Fact of the matter is, for me, if I was like teaching a class, he was in a scene in that movie that was one of the best maybe the best uncanny. It was so good film acting scenes of all time, and it wasn't at it was with Carol Baker in the booth.
Oh, right.
When he's in the background, and you're going
Yeah.
like, "Wow, what
Yeah.
did you do?"
I know. Yeah, what an incredible. I mean, to only do 3 films and have, that kind of a legacy is incredible. But and plus, I love just the old, James Dean versus, Elizabeth Taylor.
I'm
Rock
a
Hudson.
James Dean guy.
Yeah.
I have this argument with friends of mine all the time because they're all Marlon and everything, and I'm James Dean all the way.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm a little Marlon with a little bit of Montgomery Clift.
I'm way Montgomery Clift.
He too is. I feel like somehow just doesn't quite. When I was going to acting school, people talked about him a lot, but I don't think people talk about him as much as they used to.
He was in one of my favorite films, and this was not everybody's film, but it was called The Young Lions.
Yes, Young Lions.
And
with
and Brando was in it too,
Yeah.
and with a German accent, and I actually loved Marlon.
Yeah.
I worked with Marlon actually
You did? On what film?
on an obscure film that was not going to ever probably get released here. Directed and the only film ever directed by Johnny Depp, called The Brave.
Okay, I'm stunned. I'm like, I don't even know this film exists. You're right.
Okay,
Wow.
so yeah, Frederick Forrest, Johnny put together all his characters.
I want to see it. Is it available anywhere?
You want me to tell you about the
Please.
basic theme? He sells himself to a snuff movie maker to support his family.
Okay. Jeez.
So it's not really a happy
Yeah,
film.
not a Disney film.
Yeah, and I'm not a very nice person.
I still want to see it. Oh
I mean,
my
I don't do
God.
anything really. I work for Marlon, who's the bad guy.
Jesus. So what? I mean, I'm skip all these questions. Did you? I met Marlon Brando. I talked about it in my book, and I met him once. We spent like a lunch that turned into dinner, turned into midnight supper. I mean, he was at a point in his life where he seemed very alone, like just really had nowhere else to go, and talked to us and regaled us with stories. And did you sort of feel that same thing? If he likes you.
I was I was his minion,
Yeah.
and he was evil. But I walked out of the room when he walked in, so we didn't have interplay,
Right.
And so I hung out with him. It was better in a way because I didn't work with him. I would stand next to him on the set when we were, and he was really nice. I mean, I have mixed kind of, over the years, he's just been there in various things, and I didn't know what to, but I just opened my mind about it, and he was really nice to everybody and nice to everybody on the set. There wasn't a single kind of Marlon Brando story of difficulty or anything.
I met him, and as I'm sure you meet some actors, I think because it's our job, or I've been trained like Pavlovian to be very open when you meet people, you do get a good sense of like, oh, they're open. No, they're closed. Oh, they're open, and I felt like he was, he called me a tuning fork because, again, like I felt like I was so emotional and I didn't want to hide anything from him, but it ended up getting like very, very deep. I thought he was like, had insight that was frightening, like a
Well,
laser.
he had to. He was very good, really, in the Julius Caesar. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he was pretty good as Mark Antony.
Yeah. I think he was good in it. I mean,
well,
Guys and Dolls even. I've never.
I guess he was probably good, pretty good in most everything.
Yeah.
I have other,
I just saw On the Waterfront, which again I've seen like 20 times, but I had an opportunity to see it on the big screen, which I've only seen probably about 5 times. And again, it's like it's incredible.
It's unbelievable.
It's on to watch that movie on the big screen.
It's almost ridiculously good. Yeah.
It has moved every year. It moves up
More.
for me of how great that film actually is. I like it much more than Streetcar. I mean, of course, Streetcar's great. And
I went to that and I got kicked out of the theater.
Of
the first
Streetcar?
time. No, Waterfront.
Oh, really?
Kid,
Yeah.
smoking in the balcony or something, and went up the street and saw some movie with Robert Mitchum in it at the same time. So it took me a while to get back to Waterfront, and I saw it, and of course it's.
Yeah, blows you away. All right, we're talking so much about movies, which I could do forever and ever. But when I was reading that when you grew up, you wanted to act, but you were kind of discouraged from that, and then you kind of went into teaching public speaking.
Well, I graduated from the University of Colorado, and I went to work in the oil fields, and then there was something like, I was just a worker in the oil fields. I had no college degree type job. It's called being a roughneck. I was very bad at it. And it's a very macho thing. And I worked, they were hard workers. And I'm not, I'm lazy. And so, but I was paying attention to something that was said on I made a little money off of this venture. And then I just took off and went to Europe, and I came back, and there was this person who had a company that had been started by an actor named Lee Bowman. And it was an actor that came up with this technique, and I was explaining to Tamara earlier. And what we did was we taught executives how to give public speaking and take the pressure off the fact that it's that hard. That they could read their speech, and we could teach them how to read their speech and make it not look like they were reading it.
And what would be a tip for public speaking? Because people always ask me, and I don't know what to say.
Pause and look at people, because they think you're communicating with them, and you're sitting there saying, I don't have the faintest idea what I'm going to be saying. They don't think that. The audience thinks you're communicating with them. We think we just have to keep talking.
Right. Well, like in acting school, I mean, I remember the first thing that they would always tell you is to put some imaginary person out. Like you never would look at the audience. But I found immediately when I was doing theater,
You're right. You look high. Yeah.
I was like,
That's hard.
I was like, I don't want to look at the egg. I was like, that's ridiculous. I didn't really do that. I found that harder to like, place an imaginary something or other out at a.
Well, when I finally did a play, I did it in Salt Lake City. It was I wanted to not be a virgin, so I did some equity work, and I played Ulysses Grant. Very proud of that. I got some really bad reviews, but the director told me, look up toward the top, and I get it.
Yeah. Just to have a level,
Yeah, so they can see your face when you're,
Right. So you started acting much later.
Later.
So your first film is
Birdie.
Is Birdie. I mean, not a bad way to go in.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a litany to how that happened. Okay, so we know my wife. Well, we've had this conversation.
Yes.
My wife's a famous costume designer.
Very famous. We're going to she's won 4 Academy Awards. And
So she had just finished Cotton Club. And incidentally, I just wanted to say this.
Yes.
I'm the only actor who has worked for every single Coppola who has directed anything. Every one of them.
that's a great trivia.
Including the granddaughter. And,
Yes.
and had Francis say, by the way, if my 9-year-old daughter Romy, and I went, of course.
She's going to be doing some home movies, and I'd
Right,
like you to
and
be in
you're
them.
and you get to be in. Anyway, so Milena had a whole bunch of people over for dinner, and I'd just come down from my gig teaching the Bank of Montreal executives how to give a speech. We were at a table, and Fred Roos, you know Fred.
Oh, wow. We love Fred, and he's been mentioned here a number of times for starting people's careers. And Fred Roos is one of the most
I'm a
famous.
function of Fred Roos's imagination.
He is, one of the most famous casting people. Also, producer.
So Alan Parker goes up to him and says, I didn't know this was going on, and says, Fred, I'm looking for this actor. I can't find him. I've seen all these actors. Juliet Taylor was casting. Says, Juliet, we just can't find anybody. Says, what are you looking for? And I knew Alan because Milena, my wife, had done Midnight Express. He said, well, I want to kind of get the character I want is I'm thinking of Marshall. And Fred said, well, why don't you use Marshall? I said, but Marshall's not an actor. And he said, well, that might be good too. And so he made me audition. And I think he wanted to ask me to do it, and because I'm still friends with Alan, but he
Right.
wanted me to ask me to do it. And then when I couldn't do the audition, then he'd say, well, we tried and all that. Well, I worked my butt off on the audition, and I had a place where I could go, and I had a camera available because I knew some executives in Park Avenue and stuff like that, and I went and used their office, and they were really kind to me. And I went in and I was, I got it as good as some amateur actor could get it. I knew, it was a limited role. And Alan looked at me and said, that was good. And so, but we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Because there was all kinds of other actors like JT, all these guys. And then I got it, and that was how I started.
Wow.
Taft Hartley
Oh, really?
on that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Never had been done any.
Yeah.
Taft Hartley on that.
And were you nervous at all?
Alan wasn't going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, he seems
He
very,
choreographed me.
He seems sort of like a tough guy, but
he
He's soft
knew
inside.
that I think he is tough, but he knew that this was delicate going here
Right.
with the guy that had never, ever,
Yeah.
and he also printed the first take. Now that's a big deal.
yeah, very big.
If you've never done this before,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, I'm here. And he came over and he actually gave me things to do.
Physical.
Yeah, I like being choreographed early on. I got plenty of that from good directors, and so I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I like that too. And your experience, it's interesting. His name just came up because I interviewed Gillian Armstrong, and she was talking how much she loved Matthew Modine when they worked together in the film Mrs. Soulful. And again, that was like a part of his career, like where it was like, boom, he was doing one thing after another, one sort of eccentric part after another. And that
He was
Birdie's-
very good in Birdie.
Yeah, I think so. Did it have, was it it's kind of a dark film.
Dark, yeah. I mean, it didn't kind of do really well at the box office, but it did quite well in the aftermarket. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of cultiness going for it. It played
Yeah,
on Bravo
it fit
for-
in my like sort of post-teenage angst, looking
Yeah,
for,
there was that.
I think it had I liked it, you need to I was graduating from my Dorothy Parker, Sylvia Plath,
Sylvia Plath, I use that.
Catcher in the Rye, I mean, you need follow-up movies, and as I recall, because what year did that come out?
Well, it was made in '84, came out at the end of '84.
Yeah, that would make sense within my trajectory of. That's right about when I was going to New York, starting acting school. And
It was
stuff.
a great experience.
Yeah, and a beautiful film.
And then an agent. I ended up with Nicolas Cage's agent, and I was there with her for 30 years, Eileen Feldman, and I started getting hired.
And so after that, and after the movie came out, that's what I was going to ask you. Just was it people knew you? And people...
Well, for a minute, I got hired. Then I got hired in the room by Rob Reiner.
For Stand By Me.
Love you, Rob.
Not bad. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, he comes in down the hallway and chases me down the hallway and says, Marshall, you want to do the movie? I'm going, are you kidding? And then right after that, I had to go over and I auditioned for Elm Street Part 2, which I never told Rob about.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, yeah, and I thought for a while, for about 3 seconds, I'm really special. I really have something that, I'm getting hired in rooms now. I think everybody has a moment where they kind of like think they see way too much light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, definitely. It usually involves buying an expensive car or something.
Well, I didn't get that. Well, I had Milena in my life, so I had some guidance. And I learned very quickly that it wasn't that special.
Well, as a working actor, I think, maybe 3 times in my life, there's like you sigh and you just go, okay, well, there's the year, there's the nut or something of the year. So I want to talk about Stand By Me, another wonderful film, of course, beautifully shot film. Where was that shot?
Eugene, Oregon, and much of it in Eugene, but there's a town called Brownsville, which is in, a smaller community, maybe some distance, like an hour from real rural.
Yeah.
From Eugene, but Oregon.
And in terms, I'm trying to remember if for Rob Reiner, is this one of his first?
I think it was I think there was Spinal Tap.
Well, but there wasn't like a comedic. This is a pretty
wasn't.
serious film.
There wasn't anything except it needed him.
Yeah.
It needed maybe his depressive side, but it needed him. And I saw it again. I've seen it again, but I went down to the film festival with when Robert Osborne has a film festival in Athens.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Dear man.
Yeah.
Beloved dear man. Treated us the same way he treated Lauren Bacall.
Wonderful.
So Corey Feldman was down there. Mm-hmm. And I saw it again, and I couldn't get over how good Corey Feldman was in that when I saw it the second time.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And incredible. I love that the film. And have you stayed in touch with Will Wheaton at all?
He tweets me.
He does.
Yeah.
He says, "Hey, Dad."
I went and I said, "This is your dad." I tweeted him. He acknowledges a little bit, but he's quite, he's got that the science fiction aura deal going, so he's very much in demand in that atmosphere, in that world.
And so then going from that to Nightmare on Elm Street too. Were you concerned at all? Like, oh great, now I'm gonna get caught up in because the horror genre is always that thing. I always wonder, like, once you do 2 or 3, then, but it doesn't feel that way now. But back in the day, there was always a,
They were all great, though.
I
mean, Bob Shea was actually in the movie
uh-huh.
with a dog collar and black lipstick in the scene where, anyway, no, I would not trade that. I'm very proud of my Nightmare on Elm Street.
Did you have any, did you work at all with Wes Craven? Did he come by the set? This
Met
was
him
the
and
sequel.
met him and got patted on the back and all that, and but no, I didn't hang out with him.
I looked up the director, Jack Shoulder. It didn't look like he did too many other films after that, and now he's teaching.
He did a movie that I liked a lot called The Hidden, and I resented him because the guy in it, there was a guy in it that was just like me. Again, this shows that I, and why did he put me in it? But anyway, I've seen him over the years because we do those conventions,
Right.
occasionally.
Yeah.
And he did it was horror genre, but it was good.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know why.
Yeah. All of those, although I have a hard time watching Scary Confession because I actually get nightmares. So Nightmare on Elm Street, again.
Did you see any of them at all?
I've seen like parts of them. Listen, I can't see The Exorcist. I can only see it on TV.
I can't see The Exorcist. Hello, I can't see The
I
Exorcist.
can't see it. I mean, I feel
I'm not down for Satan.
I can't. I've never. There's a bunch of movies that
The Omen, I couldn't deal.
Oh, that one.
I freaked out
Terrifying.
for months.
I know. I can only watch them during the day on television, and like The Shining. Again, I have to stop at a certain
Well,
point.
of course, Illeana worked on The Shining, and I was around all that. I was around The Shining the whole time, and so if you're behind, if you're
Really,
behind
even
the
with those
scene-
creepy twins and
well,
that music and
I love Stanley's. That's slightly different for me. I didn't look at it quite as hard.
I mean, it must now. I want to get to that, but it must now again. Like I can't even imagine. Like a couple times when I've been on master filmmaker sets like that. That's like you're with Renoir or something, and you must look back and just go, well, that was probably the greatest filmmaking.
Well, I used to not go out. I would hang out, when they were not making the movie.
Mm-hmm.
First time, but I have, first time I ever, this is Stanley Kubrick, and I'm there. I'm Strangelove, I'm 2001 5 times.
Yeah.
I'm Lolita, I'm everywhere on this. I'm Sterling Hayden, I'm like the whole deal. I'm down. And so I'm sitting there, we're going to go meet Stanley, says Illeana. I said, really? She says, she's like family, literally, still.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in this booth in his brother-in-law, Jan Harlan, his house in the kitchen. And I'm saying, well, where is it? And then I hear from behind me, so Marshall, I hear you have property in Montana. Is it near any of the missile silos? And that was Stanley behind me, being a human being, and that was my relationship with him. Was I'd see him once a year, and it was like a totally human, non-mystical corduroy jacket.
Yeah, he was an American.
Well, he was. He wouldn't fly. That's why he didn't come back over here.
Right.
But he was, as soon as the internet came, he was football. He was totally it for the.
I heard he used to fax a lot of people. Like he would keep in communication
He'd get these tapes of football games.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to get to him. Now let's get to, because I saw in one of your interviews, I mean, this isn't bad. Marshall's being interviewed, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger calls in. That's not bad.
That was my first podcast, I think.
It was, but I was like, not bad.
The fact of the matter is, I kind of thought it wasn't Arnold.
Oh my God. At first?
I treated it as if it was. And I think they sandbagged me.
No.
I don't think it really was Arnold. Sure did sound like him, though.
It sounded exactly.
Did you hear it?
Yes. I think it was, Marshall.
Okay, well, I didn't know that. Then I did all right.
I mean, who could imitate him that well?
It was awfully good. But I think I heard later that it wasn't Arnold.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not my fault.
It was well. It sounded like him, but you've worked with him a couple times, and what was the first movie you did? Twins.
Twins.
With Ivan. So Ivan Reitman is the director, and
Very grateful to Ivan.
because he let you be funny.
He didn't, except when he had to. As I say, sometimes, as he's even commented, Marshall needs choreography, he said. But he let me run loose with that role.
Uh-huh.
And and he cast me in it, which he had a lot of other people he could have cast in that role. So I was grateful to Ivan forever. And I met Arnold on that, and then we did Total Recall afterwards.
And
Very fond of him, actually.
did he have anything to do with you getting the part in Total Recall, or?
Well, I mean, I can't imagine that it didn't. I mean, he when I arrived down there in Mexico City when we were making it, he acted so glad to see me that I can't imagine that he didn't have something to do with it.
Yeah,
Although
which is
Paul
always nice.
doesn't need to be, Paul Verhoeven doesn't need to have people approve of his choices.
Now you're talking about another very eccentric director. Let's talk about Paul Verhoeven. I mean, just what an eclectic group of films he has made. Dutch.
Love him.
And do you stay in touch?
My wife, being the famous costume director, got a Lifetime Achievement Award. I think it's the only costume designer ever at the Berlinale. Have you ever been to that?
I have not.
Oh,
no.
man.
It's fun.
King of festivals.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not Cannes, because it's cold, but it's Berlin.
Right.
And you think, they run it so well that it's beyond anything. I had a great time. Paul was the head judge, so I saw him there, and we had a big moment of I love Paul. And I mean, I haven't kept in touch with him because I run into him, a little bit.
And how long did it take when you're doing, in terms of the special effects and how long is that?
The quad
Yeah.
thing. First day was 9. That was a.
Oh my
what about
God.
language? I know I'm not going to do it. It's a word that I can't possibly use, but it was that bad. It begins with an M.
Yes. Okay. I think we got it.
Yeah.
9 hours.
First day, because they didn't.
Yeah,
it was
experimenting.
complicated. And it was brilliantly designed by a guy named Rob Bottin, and he's into he was a dear friend of mine,
Yeah.
and I'm saying, Rob, we got to cut a pee hole in here. I mean, I can't. This is 18 hours I'm going to be out there, and like I got 3 hours of sleep in a week. I was sleep deprived, and I went. It's just I can't believe I'm here. after
Yeah.
that. It was hard.
Because it's a funny, you get into something and you think, oh, this is amazing, and then you forget how long something.
And you can't sleep. You can't lie
No.
down. You can't. You weigh
You're like
80
the
pounds.
elephant. It's like being the elephant man,
That I think was worse, but not much.
Yeah, I've read that the same thing, they created it on him. They literally had to create it on him, and they didn't know if it was going to work or not. Actually, that film, just to segue for a second, was when after that they started the Academy Award for makeup.
That's right.
They hadn't had it before, but they were like, well, if that isn't deserving of an Academy Award, nothing is. Didn't Rob Bottin do Gremlins? And I feel as if
He did The Thing, which is
The
kind
Thing.
of like beyond anything.
Right.
At age 19 or whatever.
wow.
And then I worked with him. I do a lot. I did any number of commercials for a director called Joe Pytka.
Oh, Joe Pytka.
And
Yeah,
Rob works with Joe Pytka.
Yes. Joe Pytka did that. Well, only the one film with
Let It Ride.
Let It Ride with Richard Dreyfuss. Talk about a cult film.
Yeah.
With our friend Jennifer Tilly. I always like that one. And did you have any interaction with Sharon Stone? This was like her kind of big breakthrough.
For some reason or another, we were really good friends, and that was on her. She treated me so kind of like a friend, and I, of course, was glad to be her friend and everything. And every time I see her, I sometimes I think it can't possibly be Sharon. And she's always waves hello and says, "Oh, I've got a book. You should read it because you'd be perfect." And so I didn't have much interaction with her, but I think even at one point I was asked to. She wanted to go to one of those Total Recall things, and she was a good friend. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a fun movie to rewatch because I was watching clips of it on.
She's really good in it.
I know. I was forgetting
Such a horrible.
how good she is in the movie. I was like, oh, this is why she
I
became
hate Mars.
That's why she became a star. She's such a kick-ass.
Well, Basic Instincts got her.
Yeah, but same director. Isn't it?
He always takes chances, and this time it worked.
Okay, I have to talk about another film that you did. You worked with Warren Beatty and Dick Tracy, another heavily made up, but everybody was heavily made up in that film. And
not the girls.
Well, you're right. Good point. The girls got, and not Warren Beatty.
No, not Warren.
Were you ever?
I just want to think about Warren sitting in the makeup chair for 3 hours.
I remember seeing the movie and I was like, he's got a key light in every scene. He looks like prettier than anybody, And what was that? Was now in the makeup was like the big top secret thing at the time. Were there did you see other people? Like, did you see Al Pacino getting made up or?
Yeah, I mean,
Paul Sorvino.
The thing about that movie was everybody was with scale. Mm-hmm. So everybody was in the honey wagon. Now herself, Madge, had, because there was a director's trailer and a producer's trailer, so Al got to go to the producer's trailer.
Right.
And then Madonna had 2 honey wagon. No, but she was in the honey wagon, but she had 2 adjoining rooms in the honey wagon. Basically, everybody was in the honey wagon.
Yeah.
So it was like it was all very, you're in the makeup trailer with Al.
Right.
Now, that character, and you're sitting next. He says, "What's the matter?" I said, "I'm sitting next to Al Pacino," and my scene was with him too.
Yeah, and
Sorvino.
Yeah. So what? Did you have fun? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, I was doing Total Recall at the same time.
Oh well, they must have been impressed by that. Do you talk about other movies when you're doing movies? I try. See, I'm terrible. I immediately drop everything I'm doing.
Well, I mean, if it helps me,
I'm
whatever.
shameless.
Oh, so am I.
I mean, I'm like, oh, that's funny because Paul Verhoeven was just saying to me.
Oh no, I'm shameless. No, don't get me wrong. I just, here we were on the lot with Warren. We got Dustin. We got all these people running around.
Everybody's in the film.
And
And what about working? The times that I have met Warren Beatty, mainly through the Larry Sanders Show.
Did he do a show? He didn't, did he?
He's in the last episode,
well,
as is everyone in. There's a scene out in the parking lot, but I think he gets in his car.
Sure.
Something very brief.
I miss Gary.
Oh God! Did you see the documentary?
No, but
heartbreaking.
That would kill
very
me.
good.
I might not. I loved him a lot.
I did too, and that's those kind of great minds who could comment on things comically. I really miss. He was
a good friend. I mean, we were basketball.
Yeah,
we did that.
Plus doing the show, and
I'm glad I was in one.
I know. I just fun to be around. But I was always trying to talk to Warren Beatty about movies, and he'd always kind of change the subject. I'd say, so when you were doing Splendor in the Grass, and he'd.
So wait a minute. What did he change it to?
No comment.
Oh God.
No, he'd always say you have to. Well, he'd say you need to come over to the house for dinner, something like that with Gary. It was very social things or new technology, things like that. And I know he enjoyed being funny, but
he is funny.
So
he is very funny actually. He's Milena was doing, and so he and I became quite close during the whole about a year. I rode shotgun.
Great.
In his and it was so. I mean, it was one of the best times. He had a Mercedes that he had wrecked, and so the right door wouldn't open, or the left door wouldn't open, and so I had to crawl through the, and I'm like scrap iron. Whatever. I'm a shotgun. I'm riding shotgun for Warren, and we went all over. We went to there was an ballet. Out there with some Russian famous Maya Pliatskaya. Have you ever heard that name?
I have not.
Well, she was a famous Russian ballerina, and Warren had known her in a former. And we went out there, and all I did was ride around with him. It was so great.
I will tell you
He was a good friend of mine, really.
When I met Warren Beatty, I will not mention the woman in question, but he said, we have something in common. And I said, oh my goodness, what is that? I'm like, and he said, your grandfather and I slept with the same woman.
Oh. That's so I
charming.
love him for saying that.
I was like, well, thank you,
Listen,
Mr. Beatty.
When you're lucky enough to have dinner with him, and he's in a good mood, and you're at Mandarin,
yeah,
the stories are the best.
The best. That's why I was always
and real, and they're good. You know
Yeah.
about everybody.
Everybody. No, I mean he is the bridge, one of the few remaining people that was in the studio system and worked with studio directors like George Stevens, and then into the new filmmaking.
Vivian Lee.
Yeah. And then to Arthur Penn and Bonnie and Clyde, and breaking all the rules, and I consider him to be one of the most important people in the film industry because of that. All those people that were bridge people, Dennis Hopper is another one. They were there. They broke the rules, and then opened the doors, I think, for all the Spielbergs and the Scorseses and Lucas and all of that,
Yeah. I mean, he actually, Wild Bunch happens to be one of my top fives.
Yeah.
And he invented the technique that Wild Bunch used for the violence, with the slow motion.
Yeah.
That was in Bonnie and Clyde before.
That's right. You're right. The who's the editor on that? Oh, I'm blanking on her name. Very famous editor.
On
Bonnie and Clyde.
No, I know. I know who
Didi Allen.
Oh, yeah.
Another story about Warren Beatty, which I've told a lot on TCM. Jack Warner did not want Didi Allen to be the editor on the film, and Warren Beatty fought for her, and then Jack Warner ended up firing her, and Warren Beatty paid her salary to have her continue on the.
You mean on the side?
Yeah. On the.
Well, it was a great film, though.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So it sounds like you stay in touch with all the people. I try to do that.
I mean, I'd like to actually, now that we're talking, I hope he sees this, now that we're talking about Warren, I'd like to be in more touch with him. But, when he I mean, I was with him right up until he got married, and the first children and everything. I was very much around. And then when he started to have children, and we, and we were away, and you kind of fall away, because they've got to worry about getting up and taking kids to school and things like that.
That's true.
And I'm friends with all the kids, but I wish I saw more of them.
Yeah.
I miss them.
I think things go in
He's
waves.
a friend of mine. He was really, what a great thing it is to be able to be some punk actor and be able to go, hey, Warren, is this what I should be listening? Okay.
I would do I have friendships like that too. Just that you send them a song that they've never heard of, or that's sort of my favorite thing, where you feel comfortable enough, like, okay, they're not going to go, stop sending me bird songs or something.
Right.
Like stop, where you have that kind of like, where they're thanking you for turning them on to something artistic, whether it's an artist or a song or something like that. We're all in it
and
together.
what a resuresource, I mean, it also gives you confidence and all
Yeah, he'd be somebody I'd love to interview too. I've never interviewed him for TCM, but He'd be somebody. God, it'd be fun.
So Robert Osborne means something to you, God.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, I'm literally he was so sweet to us. That
Yeah.
yeah.
He was great, and I was just talking.
Did you
about
go to Athens? Did you ever do that?
I never did the Athens, but I worked for TCM, and we were just talking at the top of the show, the TCM Film Festival, and how important it is to me, and the people that we meet every year. It's like it blows me away. Not just the celebrities, but again, I interviewed Joel McRae's grandson, Wyatt McRae, and that's it. You got to get all these stories on the record about what.
You should be able to get him on there because Shirley was on. I mean, he should get on there.
Yeah. Well, no, I want to get him. Let's get him here.
Let's get him here.
Let's get him
indeed.
here, and
Yeah.
then we'll all go around riding shotgun. Okay, I want to talk about another very weird movie I was watching. My God, it was so scary. Called The Vagrant with Bill Paxton.
Did you see that?
It's on, everything is online. So I was watching it online. You play a horrifying character in that. Tell us about that.
One of my great heartbreaks is that it, kind of disappeared and everything. I was very pleased about it. I loved doing it. It was a character that, again, the director sort of let me do everything I wanted to do. And then I kind of had an inkling. Actually, Annette Bening went to the screening with me. And then Michael Ritchie and Landis went with me. And Landis said afterwards, being a horror guy, really,
Yeah.
he said, it's great, but the Vagrant's a good guy. And I said, I know what that means, John. In other words, he's not scary enough.
Right.
Didn't you think it was scary? I don't know.
I thought it was scary.
I mean, I cut off Colleen Camp's head.
Yeah. I mean, Bill Paxton was scared.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's more relevant now because in LA we have all these encampments.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, as I was watching it, I said, oh, this is because there's a woman who lives at the end of our street, and she has lived there for 1 year. So, and at night she sleeps on the steps of the bank, and they lock her in.
Yeah.
So she lives there. She's not going anywhere, so I could understand how that could be. Like if she turns one day, it could be The Vagrant for Illeana.
Well, I loved making it, and I had great hopes, and we all did. And
Okay, so I do want, and then before we get to, I want to talk about your wife, but let's talk about Capote, another great film with Philip Seymour Hoffman, which I have seen very recently, and you got to work with him. How did you get cast in that film?
I had to go audition, and let's see. I think I had to. I think for some reason or another, I went to Abbey as a precast even. And, this is, and I mean, as I said, one learns humility over the.
And this is the casting director, Avi Lerner?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it one of the great?
Not Avi Lerner, but yeah, Avi Kaufman.
Avi Kaufman, sorry.
Yeah. Avi Lerner produced it. Avi Kaufman.
Getting my showbiz
Yeah.
references
Anyway,
messed up.
so that's another story.
Yeah.
So I went and then she brought me in to audition for Bennett.
Uh-huh.
And Bennett Bennett Miller, bless his heart, another one of my, I really love him a lot. But I'd never met him before, and he looks like he's 19 and cranky. And we're sitting there, and he kicks my ass in this audition, and I just keep going back and saying, okay, he gave me that. I'm going to do that. So I walked out of there, and I went and called I went and walked into my agency, which was across the street. It was Wendy. And I said, I'm not going to work for this guy. And I mean, these people, where do they think they're coming from? And she said, they've offered it to you.
Wow.
I said, like I said, I can't wait to go work with this brilliant young man.
Yeah.
And then we got up there, and he was really he obviously, I mean, he was happy with, if he's not happy with what you do, boy, he's not, you want him happy with what your work is, because it's not good.
You mean
Bennett.
yelling or what does
Well,
that
no, like
mean?
if you're getting,
Not happy.
if you're getting like how he sees the part wrong,
Right.
there will be words.
Oh, interesting.
And he doesn't give up.
Yeah, see, I
There
don't
was it's funny, I'm behind a door, and this has to do with Stanley, but I'm behind a door, and I'm coming into the room, and Phil and Dave Bob are in the room. Bennett's going, that's just not right. And I'm going like, okay, well, I'll do it again. It's just really not right. It's not working. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm just walking in the room. He says, "No, it's not right." And so then I thought, Stanley once told me, count to 5.
right.
And okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's really good.
Oh God.
Well, all it was I just waited a while to open the door.
Right. But see, that would freak me out, that kind of I don't respond well
No,
to
Bennett
criticism.
even came in, and the last time he was like, "Do you hate me?"
Yes.
And I said,
I would say,
"Well, I didn't hate him. I was really kind of confused as to how hard this was."
well, confusion isn't good for cinema.
Well, anyway, we got it. And
And working with Phil Hoffman, did he stay in character the whole time?
all the
I
time,
can imagine. Well, that's such a hard act. I mean, Jesus.
the whole time, except, and I would back. I get away from that. I go as far away and sit in the corner.
Yeah.
And I met Chris Cooper on that too. We had a great time. I'm sitting over in the corner, and I'm kind of reading the Globe and Mail or whatever. And all of a sudden, this presence next to me, and it's Phil. And he smoked, so he wanted to light up a cigarette. And he goes, "How are you doing?" And I go, "I'm okay." And all of a sudden, I notice it's not in accent,
Right.
Because it's rapped, I guess.
Yeah.
He says, "You got a Lakers score?" And I go, "No." And he says, "You really think all this being in character all day is really ridiculous, don't you?" And I go, "No, Phil, I'm all for it."
Yeah.
He was just reaching out. He was just
Yeah.
being a human being about it all.
That's very nice. Yeah.
I mean, he was kind of putting me on the spot a little bit, and I realized that I would have done the same to him. So.
Well, I can't imagine again the pressure of playing a real life person who is so dramatically different in voice and cadence, from you, and the responsibility.
Here's what you love with an actor like. We had a scene, and it's really the scene that I had. And it was the warden's scene.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
He lets it be that's how good he was. He lets it be the warden's scene. It's about the warden. The warden wins, if you want to go it like that. Wins the scene. So Phil knew all about all that.
Yeah.
So
In a way,
I love him for that.
I was watching that scene, and in a way, those to me are the scariest kind of scenes, because you're just sitting there, but the scene has a beautiful rhythm, a beautiful kind of back and forth of what he wants and what you want, and eventually he's going to sort of bribe you to get what he wants.
Back to my speech giving thing.
Yeah.
There was a moment there where I paused, where you would perceive where you were pausing for an hour. You realize you perceive that it's not that long. I paused for an awfully long time before I
Took the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bennett was fine with it. So.
Okay, we're running out of time, so now we're going to get to your wife.
Okay.
Academy Award winning
4 times.
I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. And how did you guys meet?
She was on a movie called Barry Lyndon in Dublin,
a movie
Ireland.
called Barry Lyndon.
Right, but
Jesus.
right. So she was on Barry Lyndon in Dublin, Ireland, and I was there visiting my half brother. And they were all at a hotel where I used to go with and have a hang out at the bar. And I met a woman there, and an English accent. I'm starting to talk to her. And she said, I said, what do you do? She said, well, I'm Marissa Berenson's dialogue coach. Well, I knew Marissa. Mm-hmm. I'd met Marissa. I'd spent a weekend with Marissa innocently in Southampton, and about 9 years before.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I wasn't aware that Marissa had any trouble speaking good English. But anyway, here, can I send her a letter? And I sent a letter to her. And then I found out that her friend that was over there sort of being a companion for her and a friend, because it was her first big movie and all this stuff, was one of my best friends and had gone out with my best friend and everything. And she was there. Mm-hmm. And I found out where she was the next day. And I went out and visited her at the house. And then we all went to dinner that night. And I was kind of interested in Marissa. And then Milena came in, and then I stopped being interested in Marissa. No, that's not true, Marissa. I'm always interested in her. She's still in our life.
Marissa is another fan. I'd love to have her on the show.
Well,
I'll keep
she's
booking people through
over the Atlantic. So, yeah, she would love. That would be easy, I think. She'd love to do this.
A beautiful actress, of course.
But she introduced us.
And but what I thought was so interesting, and then of course she has worked a lot with Wes Anderson in the Life Aquatic and Grand Budapest Hotel and Darjeeling Express,
commercials and things like that too.
And
they love each other.
Well, I mean, the clothes are so incredible, and I particularly, as I was mentioning before we started about Life Aquatic, I mean, those. How did she come up with those outfits? And
I have no idea.
Hats and everything is so good. Does everything have to be made? Nothing like that exists.
A lot of it. I mean, she's good at finding things, but a lot of it does. She just finished a movie with this Jacques Audiard. Mm-hmm. Do you know who the French guy directed a movie called The Mission?
Oh, with De Niro and Jeremy Irons?
It was not the Prophet. A Prophet. It's about a prison in France.
I see.
And they have to make a lot of things. But she tries not to.
Those beautiful clothes, like for Jeff Goldblum, and
that's what made.
I mean, did you visit the set at all, or? Did she make you clothes?
I visited Berlin when they were getting ready. I never went over to, it was way on the end of East Germany on the border with Poland. Uh-huh. And I never went over there. I always guilty for not going, but I was working, I think.
Yeah. Have you been to all the Academy Awards with her?
All except the one I was doing, The Vagrant, when she went for Dick Tracy.
Oh, for Dick Tracy. Yeah, she won for Dick Tracy.
Didn't win. She was nominated, though.
Didn't she won for the Coppola film, right? For Marie Antoinette? Was that the last?
For Sophie. No, she won for Grand Budapest.
Oh, for Grand Budapest. Is that when she wore the tuxedo out? What was the one where she wore that great,
I think that was Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, that's what I think that's when I first became aware of her.
And Chariots of Fire, nobody expected. I mean, please, it was a cheap. It was under, not an expensive movie,
right?
And I was not an actor yet. Alan hadn't made his
great
Birdie
discovery
for 2 years after that, so I was still being a consultant. So I'm really having. I mean, the Oscars are really fun if you're not in the business. They become hard after your ninth deal and you don't win all the time. They become very hard.
Well, so in your family, it's been pretty easy going.
Not bad.
Anyway, Marshall, thank you so much for being here. Please come back.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Please come back anytime.
Yes,
I've loved having you.
It was great having you here, Marshall. Thank you. And you can find him on Twitter at the Marshall Bell, 2 L's on Marshall.
I have very few followers.
2 L's on Bell.
I offend people, but because I'm nice and they don't like it. They like you to be mean. And
well, that's so funny. That's what we talked about at the top of the show.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to be nice too. We were well brought up.
That's it. I mean, I can't help it.
That's what I was taught.
Spreading the goodness.
Anyway, as we always end our show, as I always say, life is like a movie, and this is the end of our movie today. Thank you, Marshall.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
And I'll sign that thing out there.
Yeah, please do.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.